Today, I'm going to talk about the 5 relationship tenets that were revealed to me this previous week through inquiry and through an experience in relationship. And the crystal clarity that when these tenets are embodied, and they can be embodied over a lifetime, it's not for most of us going to be an overnight or even a incredibly consistent thing, but it is a pointer that shows us a higher truth of relating and the purpose of relating, because relationship, not just to an individual but to life, is what becomes possible as consciousness seems to constrict itself to a body. It makes available relationship. So relationship is something that can only happen on the relative level. The absolute level, pure consciousness, is like deep sleep. We can't experience it directly from this point of view. There's no time and space in pure awareness, pure consciousness. Take it back to deep sleep. If I take away your mind, your thoughts, your senses, your ego, your body, what are you left with? You can't even say nothing, because even nothing is a concept. So what is beyond the concepts, what is beyond perception, can't be experienced from and through the perspective of a mind, a finite mind. And the mind is a body mind. It's not just thoughts and images on the screen of mind. It's our senses. It's touch, sound, sight, even intuition, whatever you want to call the senses. And so the 5 tenets point us back to the absolute. I'm a little mucusy right now, forgive me. I'm going to run out to the bathroom and I'll be right back. Yeah, the relationship tenets point us to the absolute from the relative level. And that's another way of saying point us to God. You may have heard before, the real only relationship that we actually have is a relationship with God. And what does that mean? If everything in reality is made of and exists within awareness and consciousness, then I am only relating to God. But of course, I can only relate to God from this perspective. From the dreamer who's asleep, there is no separation within the dream. It's all made of dream stuff. It's all one thing contained within a dream. So from that level, there's no inner relating. There's just one expression that is changing and modulating, or seeming to, at least from our perspective. So the tenets show us where we have forgotten who we are. We've forgotten God, if you wish to use that terminology. And where we forget God, we suffer. Where we forget who we are, we suffer. And typically when we forget who we are, we reach and go to the other person to find who we think we are, or to find what we think we're missing. So if I'm in a state of forgetfulness and I'm not taking that to inquiry, then I will default into my conditioning. If I'm feeling alone, sad, rejected, unsettled, whatever it might be, and I don't go in the opposite direction of thousands of years before me of coping and addiction and whatnot, distraction, I will default to my conditioning. And my conditioning says, just go find the one. Go have sex, go get this person to love you in all the right ways, and then you'll be happy. And it's the happiness that is yourself. The abiding within yourself is the state of happiness, meaning the end of seeking. The end of seeking and abiding as pure consciousness, as presence, as being are the same thing. So the seeking, when the seeking comes online, it forgets that you forget. The ego confuses, is confusion, and will say, no, your happiness is in him, in her, in this outcome, in this receiving this form of validation, whatever it might be. And then the attempt to go get it makes you feel like you don't have it. So when I look for it, I leave it. And so when the looking ceases, you are filled with what you are looking for. And that's the effortless path. The path of effort is let me create the outcomes, the circumstances, the right people, the perfect body, the best health, and then I will be happy and free. The effortless path is questioning on whose behalf are those thoughts arising on? Is that really me in there saying you should do that, you need to do this and create this outcome and have this future to be peaceful and happy and free? Is that me in there? Or is that conditioning? And when you can separate, that's the first step, separate yourself from your conditioned mind and body. You can begin to see that that's not you. There's no entity in there called Brandon thinking those thoughts, feeling those things. That entity in of itself is a creation, is a thought, is an image on screen of mind. It's not its own autonomous entity, separate from life, located in a body. That's what it seems like. And that is the ego. That's why we say believing you're the body. Body identification is the same as believing you are the ego. And since the ego is believed into or as a body and mind, it has to take on all of the limits of body and mind, temporary, finite, can die, born in time, end in time. And that's why it hurts to seek, because we are imposing a limitation on ourselves. And that feels like disconnection, loneliness, separation, seeking, suffering. So again, before I go into the tenets are 5 pointers back to yourself, specifically in the context of relationship with an intimate or romantic partner. So let's start with the tenets. Let's all just close our eyes for a moment, take a deep breath. Another reason these are so relevant to relationships, intimate relationships, because intimate relationships are some of our the primary vehicles of our transformation. In A Course in Miracles, they say relationships are laboratories of the Holy Spirit. So it's where the Holy Spirit can enter and we can test and try and do all of these things and run experiments on how things work, so we can open more and more to the Holy Spirit, more and more to the corrective way of thinking and perceiving ourselves and others, which is what the Holy Spirit represents, the principle of correct or clear seeing from love, seeing from compassion, seeing from, like the Sufis say, everything is the face of God. And when I forget that and I'm separate from you, I've forgotten who I am. And I have to see you how I'm seeing me. And that's the gift of relationships. One of the downloads that came in this last week was relationship is an act of God's grace. Relationship to anything. Could I use this romantic especially, is an act of God's grace, because we will project all of where we believe ourselves to be separate onto the other person, so we can have a mirror, so we can have a way of seeing ourselves, so we can correct our thinking. And what happens when we correct our thinking and we inquire? We return to love, beauty, connection. So why is it an act of God's grace? Because the returning to that experience lets us experience it as unique. The way that our bodies can experience love, peace, and connection is ecstatic. It's expansive. It'll make you cry. It's the most beautiful experience on the planet. Why would God create that for itself? Because of its own self-love, its own overpouring of love. And why would God, create, so to say? Well, this is all metaphoric. God didn't create anything. God is everything. Why is it graceful to have relationships? Because we will eventually have to return to ourselves, because it takes effort to maintain separation. It is effortless to be ourselves. So we're all moving in a direction of becoming and abiding and realizing and knowing ourselves as we are. And when two do that, the two are one. And that's what it actually means to say, when two or more gather, he is there, she is there, God is there. And why would God create that experience of forgetting and remembering? Because the remembering is so beautiful and delicious and expansive. And that's how I create that experience for myself. So tenet number one. Let's go to tenet number one. Tenet number one. I'm not in relationship with you. I'm in relationship with truth. Another way to say tenet one is, my primary commitment, above all, is to truth. Let me define truth. Truth is anything that sets you free. And when I say sets you free, I mean that whatever thought, action, belief, point of view, perspective that elicits a total relaxation in the body, a freedom that is absent of obligation, expectation, control, a state of needlessness. I don't need you to change. I don't need anything to change. Just synonymous to a state of total acceptance. Those are the qualities of truth. Truth cannot create fear. Truth cannot create separation. Truth cannot hurt. It's a big misunderstanding. Lies hurt only. The truth doesn't hurt. The truth can only soothe. The truth can only comfort. The truth can only liberate. Truth is never painful. Resistance to truth is painful. So the first tenet in any and all relationship, according to this framework, is my commitment, above my commitment to you, above my commitment to my job or my career, or anything in this reality, is my commitment to truth. And truth shows up as the still voice for God, or it's also been called inner guidance or intuition, or rather just a movement of natural movement, of natural flow, of natural life moving through and as you, that when allowed, feels like curiosity, feels like inspiration, feels like excitement, feels like joy, feels like being a child, feels natural. typically creates energy, allows things to self-organize in your reality. Oh, I've just been saying yes to this, and then I'm in the right place at the right time, and all these things are organizing. I have what I need when I need it. Why does that happen when we say yes to truth? Because look in nature. The tree has to say yes to being itself. It has no choice. The bush has to say yes. The animals have to say yes. And we have never learned from the tree or the animals that there are mistakes in nature. Now, they don't have language, but if they did, I can't imagine any reason for the natural world to believe in a mistake or to believe in lack. Even in the survival experience, I don't have enough food. If the creature believed in lack, if an animal believed in lack, they would be denying their reality, meaning they would be already in a future. They would be able to project a future. Well, something's lacking now. And that means if it continues, I'm going to die some horrible death, and they'll start going into the future. Well, what happens to people when we do that? We're stagnant. We stop and we freeze and we overthink, and then we go cope and have addictions. Does that happen in nature? No. I'm not talking about the freeze response in a deer. These are physiological phenomena, not psychological, or spiritual. And so imagine, if there's not enough food for the animal, they're not. And I can't know this for sure because I'm not the animal, but I would presume there's not a psychological suffering. There's just an instinct. Food not here, move on. Next thing, next thing, next. And they're so in the moment that lack can't exist, because lack can't exist in the moment. And this is where this is where all animals live. They live in the moment. And that's another reason why we say they are unconditionally loving, because that is synonymous to the moment. That is synonymous to love. So in nature, the tree has everything it needs to be a tree. It has the sunlight, it has the soil, it has the nutrients. The forest that it's a part of, the mycelium network, transfers nutrients. It's always in the right time, the right place at the right time to be what it is. Even when it's dying, it's perfectly dying in order to give itself completely and entirely to the rest of the forest to continue to create perfect balance. So what would make you think, if our bodies quite literally are made of nature? I mean, the food grows out, we pick up the food, we eat it, it becomes our body. This body is earth. What would make you think that we don't operate amongst those same laws? That when I'm myself, like everything else in nature that is in balance, then I will have everything I need to be myself. This is why commitment to truth is universal. Because again, when I say truth, what I'm really speaking to, if I can make it more specific, is the still inner voice that says yes or no. That's it. Move or don't move. Move or rest. When that inner voice comes up and says move, and I say no, that's trauma. That's inner conflict. That drains energy. That is dis-ease. And so in relationship, moment by moment, I have that inner voice. And if it's saying move towards this person, move towards them, I move towards them. I obey that voice. If that voice says move away, I obey that voice. So this takes radical honesty, radical transparency. Because your partner can say, I'm really, really upset, and I need you right now, and I need you to come in here and do this. And that inner voice might say, no. And that is actually the most compassionate thing to do if it's true. Because again, no mistakes in reality. if it's true, I know that that person doesn't need me in that moment, if it's true. So that's my job. My job is complete and total honesty and transparency. If it's true, it has to feel free and liberating. It has to feel expansive. If it's not true, there's contraction, there's separation, there's fear. That's how you can tell the difference. So moment by moment, my relationship with you, with everything, will reflect back my willingness to be honest with myself, to be transparent with myself, which also means courageous. I can't be honest and transparent without willing to be courageous. Courage is having fear come up and fully leaning in and surrendering to it and moving in the direction anyway, saying the thing that feels like I'm going to die if I say it, but it's true. And as soon as I say it, boom, I'm liberated. That's what's always on the other side of courage. And with inquiry, you don't have to live in the way, this old paradigm, just feel the fear and push through it. That can be really useful. But with inquiry, you can sit with the fear, come to your own truth, and then share and speak with clarity and directness from liberation, not in order to be liberated. But what I found and what I often find is, we need to experience both. I'll talk about what that means, the dying in relationship is what sustains the relationship. Dying in relationship sustains the relationship. And I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm actually going to write that one down real quick here. Dying. So first, commitment. You imagine sitting down with someone. My commitment is only to truth. My highest, number one commitment is to truth. What happens when you speak your truth, man or woman, is you open to love, because they're really the same thing. When you speak your truth and you move in the direction of what's true for you, you will feel incredibly turned on by life. When you speak your truth and you let go of the fear, that's the death. That's the dying to your old conditioning, to your old self. See, relationships are basically like funerals. Every day, you have an opportunity to die to your conditioning, because the measure of your ability to embody truth is, are you being kind to the other person? No matter what. Are you being kind? Another word is compassionate. That's the measure, not who they are being to you, but who you are being towards them. That is the entrance into heaven or hell, who I'm being to you. And that's the gift of every relationship. I get to decide if I enter heaven or hell based on who I am to you, not who you are to me. Oops. So the measure of truth in relationship is, how kind am I being to this person? In every way, with my mind, with my thoughts, my actions, my emotions, everything. And when I am truth, I'm living my truth, when my inner voice and my actions all sync up, you feel this radical connection to all life, because you are being life itself moving through you, instead of resisting how life wants to move through you and being a separate self or ego. You're being life, and life is connected as one. So you start to experience that. And it's another way of saying you start to experience the fragrance, the essence of the absolute being pure consciousness, pure awareness, which is infinitely vast, open, spacious love. So you start to, the body starts to feel the nature or experience the nature, kind of like a seeping through of the absolute into this as and through this body. And the absolute is still, it doesn't move. In this reality, physical reality is always moving, is always changing. And so in this reality, we get to act and play out what the absolute level cannot. Now I'm creating two levels here. There's really not two levels. I'm just using this as a metaphor. There really is only the absolute level, but because this is it, this is how the absolute level is expressing itself. So movement towards another person is the experience of had already moved towards yourself. And now you're playing that out in space and time. I've already moved towards myself, and that self is the I am, the absolute, essential core aspect of me and of all. And when I abide as that, the connection, the love I feel can be expressed through and as this body, as the gift from God, as the gift from the Creator. I get to express and extend who and what I know myself to be towards and with someone else. So another way of saying my measure of embodied truth is my measure of celebration. My truth the next moment might be, this relationship doesn't work for me anymore. And if I'm not totally grounded in my truth, that will be scary. But it's not because of the truth. It's because of the lies I'm still holding. So this is very important. You and I, if I were to sit down with someone and go over the tenets, I say you and I have come together to more fully, through the technology of relationships, realize our own truth, the truth of who we are, the truth of our being, to become completely transparent and honest to where we are full of shit, where we are pleasing and lying and hiding. We've come together to bring light in a safe and loving way to all of those parts of ourselves that cause dis-ease. So we can more consistently, more of an embodied, convicted, day-to-day life, abide in and as God through a body. And that it's that continuing of embodiment and knowing of ourselves and returning or turning towards ourselves that is the purpose of relationship. Not to create an outcome, not to create a future, not to create a family. All of those things are byproducts. They're all expressions. But none of them can give you peace or happiness. None of them can give you safety and security. Only yourself can. Because the I am is the most consistent, reliable, I would say only consistent and reliable aspect of our experience. The part of ourselves we call ourselves I. I was 10, I was 20, I was 15, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm tired. The I has never changed. It doesn't hold anything, it doesn't fight anything. It is awareness itself. So this brings us into the second tenet. You are not responsible for my happiness. I release you from the burden of being responsible for my happiness. if we are separated from ourselves, meaning we're believing the lies of our conditioned mind. We have to seek happiness outside of ourselves because by definition, we're believing in lack. So for me to be turned away from myself, to be believing the stories of who I think I am, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I have to hide, I'm this, I'm that, as a way of coping, if we're not taught inquiry and how to turn back into ourselves and self-regulate and return to a relaxed, healed state by questioning our thinking and feeling our body, we will go into default coping mechanisms. And most of the time, just as a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old went for mom, went for mom, went for dad, we will go for partner, go for partner. Gopher. We will be gophers. Or we'll go for gophers. That happens too. I don't know what you're into, but that's your business. So when we habitually go for the other person, intuitively, we're doing that because we know we can't find what we're looking for, and that eventually it will have to turn us back to ourselves because it's what we really want. So it's more true to say, instead of I want you, I want love from you, I want safety from you, I want connection from you, I want sex from you, whatever it is, say, I want that from me, love from me, safety from me, peace from me, as I am now. It's just about investigating the me that you are referring to. I want peace in my body. I want peace in my mind. I want to change my mind to make it peaceful, change my body to make it peaceful, or I want to turn to the part of myself that is already peaceful and undisturbed, which is my awareness, my consciousness. I want to zoom out from the character that I'm believing myself to be and return to myself. And that takes inquiry, questioning our mind, questioning our thinking, pause and space to give yourself that time. Man, I'm forgetting who I am. I want to go for you. Oh, here's that moment to stop and give myself space. That's what those moments are actually calling for. It's saying, man, your conditioning says, don't sit with this. Don't be with this. Go for them. And your higher mind, your higher self is saying, go for God, go for you. And that requires some space to go within, to go in the opposite direction of your conditioning. So there's two types of flows that happen when you know happiness is your responsibility. You're either moving towards them, extending your happiness, extending your joy, or there is a feeling of resistance. And you're either giving yourself space, you go, oh, this is actually for me to give myself space, or they are able to sit with you and be a space. That's why we call it holding space. Because it takes a type of internal engagement where you feel spaciousness around, you don't feel engaged or like you have to do or be anything. And that's the proper role of the other person, not to change you, not to, they can lead you to a breakthrough if that's what you are requesting. That can be helpful, but often in partnership, just their permission for you to be as you are is enough. Love gives permission. Ego wants to change. Love gives permission. And you can even say, hey, I'm going to sit with you and I'm just going to be permission for you to have this experience. And it's totally okay. I'm right here. And you'd be so surprised by just how that creates a catalyst in the other person to work with the Holy Spirit, the corrective principle of thinking, to release, to let go, and to see the truth. And that is an art form of learning how to go in and question your mind. And we call it inquiry. And this is why both individuals learning inquiry is absolutely foundational. How to question our own beliefs, absolutely foundational. How to stop and feel our emotions, absolutely foundational. So you're not responsible for my happiness means I'm either extending my happiness to you, taking space to question the lies that have been keeping me from my happiness, then I return to happiness, and then I extend it to you and myself. And or the third is you are a space and helping me find that space to return to myself. But I know I'm not getting it from you. That's why I say you're a space. I can't get anything from space. There's nothing I can get from space. So the third principle kind of covered, or tenet covered here, is when I forget that I'm responsible for happiness, for my own happiness, that it's not the other person meeting all my love languages. It's not the other person meeting all my agreements. It's not about the other person. You know, so many times we make agreements to hide our insecurities. Here are all my agreements. And if you match them, I'll feel good. So just don't cross my boundaries. And this is why I've said before, boundaries are often selfish. What does that mean? If a boundary is coming from ego, then the boundary is an attempt to keep the self, the separate self, the ego self, alive. That's what selfish means. Boundaries moment by moment is back to tenet one. It's a commitment to truth. It's either a yes or no. I either stay or I go. I'm clear. It's my job moment by moment. But if I'm creating all of these rules for you, that when you break them, I pull away my love, I go into contraction, I go into separate self. And I think you're the issue, and I just need to create stronger boundaries, then what I'm actually doing is trying to sustain my ego, which is essentially saying sustained separation. That's why it hurts so bad. Not because of what they did, but because of the effort to sustain separation. So in tenet two, it's not, I can't find happiness in you. Sex, love, kids, outcomes, security, all that stuff I think I can get from you. The more that I seek it in you, the more disconnected I feel. I can't find happiness in you, no matter what. No matter what you do, or no matter what you give me, or no matter what you take away, it cannot give me or take away true happiness. True happiness is my being. It's the essence of what I am. And I return to that when I stop seeking. So when the third tenet is when I forget that you're not the source of my happiness, then it's my job to forgive myself. And this is the only form of forgiveness that is required in relationship. Self-forgiveness. Someone can attack me. Slow it down here. There we go. Someone could attack me and physically harm me. Once the moment is past, if I keep replaying the story, the experience, and I tell myself this means I'm powerless, weak, bad, wrong, a victim. If I continue telling the story, I'm causing me suffering, not the experience. The experience is over. So suffering has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with our thinking and believing. So why would I forgive them for my thinking and believing? Doesn't make sense. Hey, I'm just forgiving you for all the times that I've, ever since that experience, called myself wrong, bad, weak, lacking, not loved. No. It's only to get to the root of suffering. It's only self-forgiveness. So when, and there will for most of us be a when I forget that happiness, and you could put any word in here, safety, security, any word. When I forget that it's not your job, and when I forget that it's my job, and I believe it's your job, then the next tenet is I'm responsible for forgiving myself and coming back to my knowing. And that's the service of the relationship. They are going to show you every single part of you that feels not free, so you can investigate it and return to the freedom within yourself. And you can now extend that to your partner versus withdrawal. That's the journey we're going. We're going from withdrawers to extenders, because to extend freedom, to extend love, is also to receive it, is also to become it. The fourth principle, which I think I said there's 5, but there's 4, and then the 4 gets expanded into a lot of areas. So it seems like there's multiple here, but it's all under one umbrella. The 4th is shared passion creates shared potency, creates potency in the relationship. What does that mean? When I, as an individual, Brandon Bozarth, am allowing the natural flow of who and what I am to flow through me in the direction of passion, inspiration, creativity, curiosity, I am life affirming in that moment. I'm affirming life moving through me. That's why it's energizing. That's why it's exciting. That's why it leads me to having a vital body, good health, being very connected to nature, because I'm being my own nature. And you'll see that people that are very close to their own nature love and care about nature. You want to be in nature. You want to be in the sun. They find all the most natural ways of healing. They just attract them. They attract the information. They're given everything they need to be their most natural, vibrant self when they are in that state of allowing. Because that state, just like we referred to in the first tenet, because that state is self-organizing, just like the trees and the animals, you will move out and in of engagement in the relationship, out and in the most perfect flow, where things like in the tantric tradition, like polarity, sexual polarity, are automatic and effortless. Now, it's not wrong to make some agreements to create polarity if that excites you, if that's natural to you, because that is the natural flow. Paying more attention to the feeling than the form is very important. So this feels natural to me. We're going to create these agreements. That's kind of like training wheels. And they might work forever. But what's going to be more spontaneous and even effortless, can be more effortless, is the moment by moment, where is this inner voice taking me? And look, we just so happen to go like this. And we might go like this for a year, 5 years, 10 years. I have zero insistence, expectation, or control about how long our truths are going to keep bringing us apart and together and engaged to not engaged. I'm just surrendered to the truth. So when I say shared passion creates this dynamic movement that creates perfect polarity, perfect amount of space, perfect amount of togetherness if it's being listened to. You'll find that most of the people that have shared passions, or that are experiencing that type of rhythm don't need to have the same career. They don't need to have the same job, but their passions are building. They build one another. They benefit one another. They move in a similar direction. Some shared intent and direction to the relationship. And when it's fueled by the individual's unique passion, let's say mine is doing what I'm doing right now, and let's say my partner's is detox or nutrition, that when I'm in mine and she is in hers, we are totally in connection with ourselves, life, others, intimacy, love, creativity, and then we bring that back to each other. So the healthy relationship flow is I have passion, connection, and love with you, and passion and connection and love without you. And I get to go here and share and bring it. And then what are we bringing back? Excitement, joy, newness, freshness, spontaneity. And we can do that our entire life. That's when the relationship never gets old. The only reason people get bored with the relationship is because they're bored with themselves. They've started saying no to themselves. There's no such thing as a boring moment. There's no such thing as a boring experience. There's only boring minds, or minds that are in resistance to life, because that's really what boredom is. It's a slight denial of how things are. So shared passion just means, I'll use this for example because it's kind of relevant, vax and anti-vax. So if one is passionate about vaccines and maybe developing, and one is passionate about anti-vaccines, there will probably be some compatibility issues. Now, typically what happens, why this is really not a non-issue, is when someone's fully saying yes to their passion and they're not coming from wounding or trauma or proving or seeking validation, they're genuinely coming from their natural flow, they get that reflected back to them in their life. People that are living their version of that show up. And it becomes effortless to magnetize those people because you're projecting your reality. So you're going to get back what you are being and how you're believing and seeing yourself. You'll find people in very similar paths. So it's really, if there's a truth to move towards someone, not always, but often there is a compatibility there to a certain degree. Now you might change and grow, and that compatibility might shift. What is it like if a compatibility shifts? The truth within you says, move away. Move away. It doesn't say they're bad. It doesn't say they're wrong. Or it might say, I don't want to be intimate with this person anymore. I want to move on. I want to move away from that experience. So it's just a natural movement. It's not judgment. It's not avoidance. Avoidance says, if I do stay, I'm not going to be free. I'm not going to be able to access happiness. So we're moving to escape rather than moving because we're honoring truth. Again, this takes radical honesty. Shared passion creates shared potency, spontaneity, perfect polarity, a shared direction with no attachment. Because when you're really living your passion, in those moments where time disappears, you're not going, hey, I wonder what's going to happen in 3 months in my relationship. I wonder am I going to hit that goal? When you're really surrendered to the passion, you're not living in time anymore. You're timeless. So you can have a shared movement in a direction but be so loving the process that that's the goal of the relationship. The process of becoming moment by moment by moment, knowing at any moment it could change. And the test of it, are they okay with that? Am I okay with that? Is our willingness to give each other space. Our willingness to give each other space. That will simulate, that will bring up any attachment that says, I need you for me. And the me that I'm referring to is my ego. My ego is saying, I need you to survive. And this is what it means, that relationships are funerals. It's your funeral. You will die over and over. The ego will die on what it thinks it needs to sustain itself, to be okay, to be loved. As you surrender, as you become honest, as you let go, as you inquire, you will die to that love over and over and over and over. The more you die, the more life the relationship will have, the more alive it will feel. The more passionate, the more intimate, the more transparent, the better the sex, all of it. So the old saying, as from the man to the woman, is I will die for you. Now it's I will die for truth. Another one is, instead of saying I'm in love with you, is I'm love with you. Meaning I'm in love with you. Usually you're pointing to their body. I'm in love with your body, your mind, your what you do, what you say. Now here's the thing, all of that changes. All of that changes. You can't unconditionally love someone if you limit them only to their body. Because if you're saying, man, I unconditionally love you as you are, and you're pointing to their body, that's who they are. Then when the body changes, when the mind changes, well, there goes your love. Well, was it unconditional in the first place? So if we limit our love to their body and mind, we're limiting our own love to our body and mind. I'm in love with me because my body and mind's a certain way. That means when it's not a certain way, I'm going to be in resistance towards myself. So again, we're always going to get ourselves reflected back to us. I will put on my partner everything that is unintegrated from my past onto them. And I will be in a relationship with my past through them until I start to purify all of that. And then I get to see them clearly. And when I see them clearly, I see their me. Literally, I see all of their thoughts, their emotions, what they are at their core. They're the same as me. That's the love on all levels. That's the unconditional love. So to say I'm in love with you means when I am with you, I am love itself. And all that means is I'm not separating myself from you. I'm not hiding. I'm not judging. So when I'm not hiding and judging and I am in a full allowance of my truth with another person, I am love. I am love in action. I am love moving. I am the rest of the absolute in a movement. And that is what love is. The knowing of our shared being, the absence of any separation is love. I am love. The I am is the love, and I am that. I am sourced and an extension of that with you. These are just little language upgrades. I will die for you. I will die for true. I will die for what's true. I love you. I am love with you. We think, oh, well, if I don't say I love you to the individual person, it won't be as meaningful. Well, if you really love someone, wouldn't you want them to realize they are the source of their own love? Because then they don't seek it in you. They don't bug you. They're not needy. Wouldn't you want that for them? I'm not just talking about your ego wanting it for them, but wouldn't you genuinely want that for them if you really love them? You know, for them to move beyond their suffering. And what this does is it takes all the specialness away from the ego. And so often we mistake love for specialness. We say, oh, this person only loves me. They're only having sex with me. They only want me. And we say that, we believe that's love. But what it is the ego saying, I'm special, I'm different than everyone else. I have something people don't have. This person that loves me is such a big deal. Since they love me, that must mean I'm a big deal. It's a way of trying to boost ourselves up that we think is love, but it's not. It's the opposite of love, actually. It's trying to create a separate identity that's bigger than love, that's bigger than others. And since it's being sourced from the other person, we're also a slave to it. We need the specialness to continue. I need more presents, dates, compliments. I need to get with people that are a millionaire, billionaire, that have this body, that have this mind. I keep searching for more specialness. So it's not about wanting to feel special. It's about letting the need to feel special die. Who would I be without that thought? Who would I be without the need to feel special from this person? I'd be the source of love. I would be accepting, and I would love them. I would be kind towards them. And then I am filled with love and kindness authentically. Diane, you said, I'm continuing to contemplate what the soul is. The soul and the separate self aren't separate. They're the same thing. So imagine you being a puzzle piece, and the conditioning of thousands of years in our families and culture and all that change that puzzle piece to a different shape. When you believe you are that shape, the conditioned shape, which is the ego, the body mind, then things don't seem to fit. We're not fitting in the right career, the right relationship, the right environment, right health. So we're a product of that conditioning, and that conditioning is all based in dis-ease. That's just been historically what it's been for the most part. So now we go in the opposite direction. We question the existence, the reality of the ego. We shift perception towards these beliefs that would cause us to default into our conditioning and reinforce the ego. And we start becoming our natural shape. That natural shape is the soul being expressed without resistance. So we are the soul right now. We're just experiencing ourselves through our conditioning as in a body. But when we start to uncondition that habit, we live as the soul, which is always life-affirming, integrative, connective, inspiring, passionate, curious. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thanks for joining, and I will see you soon.